Good evening, everyone. This is author R. Weir here. We had a little bit of a error message there, so it said I had to start all over again. So we're going to see see how this goes. First time I've had this problem with this, but I have my guest tonight. We'll hopefully keep going here, and I'm going to bring her on now. Patricia Raybon, how you doing?
I'm doing good. We're not intimidated by tech problems, are we, Randy?
No, well, I work in the IT world, so I'm used to crazy stuff sometimes. But we'll see how it goes tonight.
Yes.
Like I said, that's the first time I switched software. I think this is probably the fourth or fifth show, and I've never had a problem with it. But you're the lucky one tonight. I had some other software I used before. It was my computer that had the problem and froze in the middle of it. And my guest, while I was rebooting and coming back on, she just kept talking. She said, "I knew you were there, so I thought I'd just fill some space."
Right.
But anyway, welcome. Hi. Glad to have you on again. So
Great to see you, Randy. It was, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were at Left Coast Crime. So it's good to be with you again.
yeah, and we were on a panel together. Got to meet some other authors. I'd actually have had uh, most everybody on now. I haven't had Marie yet,
Hmm.
but I plan on. She has her own podcast as well.
Yes.
And but Helen, I had her on my podcast previously, and then I had I think it was Cynthia. I had
Oh,
just a few
yeah.
weeks
Yeah.
ago. Yeah, I had her a few weeks ago on. So, and of course, I'm on every week. So, or every week I'm on. So I don't need to interview myself. Uh,
Right.
but but thanks again for being on. I know we had fun on the panel talking about crime in Colorado. They didn't give us a whole lot to work with. They just said crime in Colorado, and we kind of ran with it from there.
Yes.
But tell us a little bit about yourself, the important things people need to know about you.
Well, you've been talking about Colorado, and I should start there, Randy. I am a Coloradan, a Westerner. My dad came out here with the Air Force Finance and Accounting Center after World War II. I'm telling my age now when I go back that far. But, I grew up here. And for a long time, I didn't really think of myself as a Westerner, but I am. I still live here. I only went away to do my undergraduate degree in journalism at the Ohio State University, and and after that worked not even a whole year in Chicago. After one Chicago winter, I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to go back to Colorado winters. So
Yeah.
so I mentioned that, because it's central to how I see the world, what I know about it, and what I write about. And so I'll start there for anybody who's knows anything about me or has read any of my books. I'll mention it there. But I'll tell you, Randy, the thing that really defines um, how and why I write happened during my early life as a newspaper journalist at the Denver Post, green as grass, just out of undergraduate school, and I was on the city desk. And I don't know if I mentioned this at that panel, but one day there was a notice on the bulletin board announcing a position in the features department. And I had wanted at that point, to move up in my career. And I don't know if anybody else applied for the position, but you hear that phrase, it's small hinges open big doors. And so I got that job, Randy, and went upstairs to the features department and started writing not just about facts, but about feelings. And And this was during the heyday of long form journalism. And so I didn't know at the time that that introduction to feature writing during that era was really laying a foundation for what I'm doing now, which is writing fiction. I just couldn't see that far ahead, but um, those are things that you ask the question, "Who am I?" and how does this all fit? Those are two really key things that have to do with who I am and um, how I write and why. So I'll start with that.
So journalism. So you did journalism.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the newspaper industry is struggling these days, and you said long form. Everything is very short and compact these days. Everyone seems to have short attention spans. It seems like, and everything. So, do you miss those days of the working on the newspaper, doing that type of work, and the challenges it presented?
Well, it's interesting. There is a part of it that I missed. I mean, these are the days, Randy, when the Sunday paper would hit your front porch. I mean, you could knock somebody out with the paper. It's
Right.
so much advertising, and so it was not unusual to write 2,500 word feature article, see it published on page one of the Sunday paper, and nobody was saying, "Oh, this is too long." Because there was just so much space to fill because there was so much advertising, and this of course was before the internet, and so people that's where people got their information, and they were active readers, and so I still I subscribe to a lot of newspapers still today because I love newspaper. I love the long form journalism that is out there. This past week with um, the conclave that gave us the latest pope, I've been reading all of those long articles about who he is and what he's about, um, and so um, I'm grateful that that was an opportunity that I had. And then, of course, I left newspaper journalism and went up to the University of Colorado mid career to teach journalism. So I was at the Boulder campus for 15, 16 years teaching uh, feature writing and news editing and news reporting. And so it's been a lot of years that I've been blessed to do newspaper work. And speaking of the Pope, I love that today he had a huge audience of thousands of journalists that he spoke to today. And I should say, I'm not Catholic. I am a, a, a writer of faith. You probably know this. I write at the intersection of faith and race. And
Mm-hmm.
that's true for my mystery novels too. But I um, just enjoy what all of these global important issues offer us as citizens of the world to chew on and debate and talk about. And then you and I, get to sit down and write about these things.
Yes, we do. We hope. So we kind of learned where you kind of got your writing from, obviously doing journalism stuff. Were you a big reader when you were younger? And who were some of the authors that you really enjoyed reading that kind of inspired you?
Yeah, I've been writing since I learned to read as a young child. Um, and I'll answer that question in a second. But um, the other thing that I will mention, because it's central, is that I grew up as a young African American woman in out in the West. But the other thing, Randy, is, and this is where I really tell my age, I grew up under Jim Crow segregation. I was born in a segregated hospital,
Right.
and 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 so were my parents. And then when my parents um, passed away, they were buried in segregated cemeteries.
Right.
And so that experience, I came of age before the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, and so uh, the um, the kind of insanity of that experience has just requires that if you are any kind of called to any kind of writing, you just have to write about it, and because it's just um, it's just not it's not a neutral situation. And so I found myself early on reading you just, um, mysteries, Nancy Drew, and that. But then when I um, went off to college, then I was reading James Baldwin and Richard Wright, and eventually Toni Morrison. I was reading authors who were trying to unpack this this experience. It's so amazing, um, and it is American history. Even though we're in a season now where people are saying, "Oh, that's woke, that's DEI," all those things. Don't teach these things. Don't have them in your libraries and that kind of thing. But I'm telling you, it's a fascinating narrative. The African American narrative is fascinating, and so I I read a lot of mystery writers who are not black. I made a note today. I love William Kent Kruger and his novels. I love clergy novels. G.K. Chesterton's Father Brown series, the Grantchester series that's dramatized on Masterpiece Theater, um, Agatha Christie. The people, authors who are um, looking for ways to unravel these tough issues, and then in the context of a mystery. It's just so good. And so that's what I've been doing, and that's what I enjoy.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this, and I've several people mentioned it. The left coast crime. DEI being like a bad word these days. Woke being bad. And it's a
Yeah,
lot of it is just silly, and we seem to be taking some steps backwards uh, with the political environment right now, and not
yeah,
wanting to teach these things that have happened, our history that have happened and actually happened, just because we might upset somebody, and it's like it's really silly. I mean, would you not want to teach about what happened in World War II to the Jewish population? No, I mean, these are all things we all need to learn about. So yeah,
yeah,
all of that, as authors and writers, uh, we need to bring those things out in our writings, and I know you do that in your series.
yes. I what it found me, this series, during the pandemic. We were all isolated and vaccinated, um, and and I said to my husband, "What do you think about me trying to finish this mystery novel that I've been talking about all these years?" And so that's we had that time, and that's what I did. And here's the first one, All That Is Secret. And I have, I said to my agent, who has represented my nonfiction books, I said, I've got a mystery novel. And he said, oh, I want to read it. And he sold it very quickly. And then the publisher turned around in the same breath and said, can you turn it into a series? And so, I had been wondering if I could finish and sell a mystery novel. And now I've got three, and I am under contract for a World War II code breaking novel. And yes, and it's set at a black finishing school in North Carolina, which is where my mother is from. And the real setting is down the road from one of the largest army bases, World War II army bases, called Camp Butner. There were 30,000 soldiers on that army base during World War II, and thousands of POWs, Germans and Italians. And so my parents actually met because he was in training as a young African American officer on that army base. So I thought, I love code breaking novels. Let me see if I can write one. So, like you said, history, it's fascinating to me, and I love weaving it in with the the fictional journey. So, and then because of my life, they are at that intersection of faith and race. So, I think it offers a lot to chew on, and I love writing them, and people tell me they love reading them.
So I think it seems pretty obvious to me, but I'm going to ask the question then, do you find writing therapeutic for you? Do you find that it helps? Obviously, you're dealing with your faith and obviously race, but does it feel like when you're typing that stuff away, it kind of unburdens some of those issues from you?
It's cathartic,
Yeah.
yes.
Hmm.
And here's my first book, uh, which was a prayer memoir. I'm sorry, not a prayer memoir. This was my racial forgiveness memoir. And when I went up to teach at the University of Colorado on the tenure track, I knew I needed to have a book published in order to get tenure. And so I had been writing first person essays and getting them published in places like the New York Times Magazine and other places like that, because I needed to do that. And always writing about faith and race, even then, Randy. And so my dean at the university said, you'll never get tenure in the School of Journalism writing about these things. And not only well, first of all, I ended up on the Today Show with this book,
Yeah.
and I got tenure. But to answer your question, it was cathartic for me. But what surprised me is that it was cathartic for the people reading it. And
Sure.
here's this book starts out like this. God help me. I stopped hating white people on purpose about a year ago. And so when it came out, people would write me, uh, this is before email, they'd write me letters, including hate mail, but they write me letters and say, Dear Patricia, I read your book. I really love your book. Then 3 pages about it reminds me of me. It reminds me what I've been going through and my life and so very, very, very early in my life as an author, not just a newspaper journalist, But as an author, I realized I'm not writing this for me. It's cathartic for me. But what it is what it does is give my reader permission to take the same journey. And if I will give back my story, either in a nonfiction project like this, or in the mystery novels, if I will give back, then people will say the same thing. I got so much out of this. This helped me so much. You start to hear that kind of thing from your readers, and so I recognize, because of that very first book project that I did, that the work is not about me. It's about my willingness to do the work. And you said to me before we came on that you don't do this, you're not in this to make money. If you do, that's fine. But there's a whole other level of reasons why we sit here at our keyboards and do this work, and it's because it's much bigger than who we are. Much, much bigger. One of the things I do, I write. I'm a contributing writer to a global ministry called Our Daily Bread, and they have a huge reach. They reach something like 50, 60 million people every month around the world, and with what are called daily devotionals. When I'm writing that, in fact, I worked on one today. I'm so aware that the byline doesn't matter, but somebody else, somewhere else, where I'll never probably go or even know the name of, will read something and just get something out of it that can be life changing to them. Writing is that powerful. And my one of my grandchildren, my grandson, it's 14. He asked me just the other day, "Grandma, do you do this work because you?" He said, "You do this work because you need the money, or because you enjoy it?" I said, and I love the question. I said, I do it because I feel called to, and I I don't know anything more that I get anything else that I get more out of. I just feel amazed and grateful to be in this community, this family of writers that you're in and we're in together, and have a chance to do this work. It's amazing to me, and to answer your question, yeah, sometimes a lot of times it's cathartic. On top of that,
Well, it's always great when you make those connections with the readers. That always
yeah,
make all those hours of work
yes,
feel like it's worthwhile, even if maybe you're not selling as much as you'd hope to sell. So, so I was reading this. I got this off your website, and I thought it was interesting. And this was All That Is Secret, which
uh-huh.
was which is the first book, right?
Yes,
All That Is Secret. I'll put that up on the screen too. But I got that and it said it's a riveting puzzle about a young black theologian and Sherlock fan trying to solve her father's cold case murder in a city ruled by the KKK.
yes,
Now that says a lot right there about what that story's about. So what
yes.
city is the story set in? Is it Denver?
It's set in Denver.
Denver. Okay.
Um, a lot of people don't know. Colorado had the second highest Klan membership per capita of any state in the union. The Klan in Colorado was a huge political bloc. Leaders from the governor on down were dues-paying members of the Klan. Every county in Colorado had a Klan clavern. Um, And so sheriffs and the Denver police chief was a Klan member. The mayor of Denver, Ben Stapleton, was a Klan member. And so, as you know, for fiction, that kind of background tension is a good thing for fiction. Trouble's a good thing in fiction. And so, and I love the 20s in terms of the look of it, and the time, we had the country had come out of World War I. The Spanish flu had killed millions of people, and so the in Colorado was trying to sort through all of that, and while during the time that the Klan took over, so that just felt like to me, uh, oh, this could be a good time and a good place to unravel a mystery. So my protagonist is a young theologian by training. A lot of people, the Freedom Bureau schools graduated. I don't know how many African Americans who'd come out of the Reconstruction era. Jim Crow was established, and so she's a theologian, but she has 1,000 questions about God. And if you were so good, why is this problem so bad? And I'm trying to solve a mystery too. Um, and she was trying to solve the murder of her estranged father.
Oh,
So you know how, Randy, you do this work. It it doesn't hurt to keep layering on the trouble. and and so that's the first one. In the second one, she is trying to solve the murder of a trick pilot before she gets framed for the crime.
a
And
trick pilot?
a
You mean
trick
someone who
pilot,
flies and does aerobatics
yes,
at
yes.
night?
After World War I, the pilots didn't have the U.S. Postal Service had not been fully established, and if they weren't still in the military, they didn't have any way to earn a living with their flying, and so the whole barnstorming era, took off. And so in this story, she's trying to solve the murder of a young barnstormer before she gets framed for the crime. And then in the third one, truth be told, um, she is at a garden party when a young lady is found dead in the potting shed. And she wants to know, who was this woman? Why don't people seem to care about who she was? And so she sets out to find out what happened. So it's the same protagonist, all of them set in Colorado, but each book is a different mystery.
Right.
And
It was Annalee Spain, right, is the main
yes,
protagonist, correct? Yeah. So it's in the 1920s. So how
yes.
did you research that era? You're not that old. We don't think you were alive at that time. So did you have some family members that lived in that time, or people you knew, or how did you research because period pieces are always tough. You got to get
Yeah,
the clothing right, and there were automobiles, but they weren't like now where we got cars everywhere. That was a luxury item to have a car in the
yes.
1920s.
So, there's, I do a lot of reading. I don't call it research. I'm just curious about things. So I do a lot of reading. But one of the best resources for me, and I think I did mention that when we were on a panel together, is the oral histories at the Denver Public Library. And so I just listened to hours and hours of people who were active during that time, talking about what had happened in Colorado during the Klan era, during the 1920s. And I loved learning that way. And then the other thing, a great resource for me is a website called the Historical Newspapers of Colorado. And I read, you put it on up, it's all digital, and you just read page by page. And Randy, um, not only, of course, is there the news, but there's a lot of advertising and speaking of cars, uh, car dealerships advertising their cars, and in Double of the Lies, um, a typewriter is my character is getting these typewritten notes and threatening notes during the course of the story. And
Mhm.
sure enough, when I looked at the Denver Express newspaper and some of the others, there are a ton of typewriter company advertisements. That was a considered a important kind of technology of the era. So the material is out there, and our job as the authors is to buckle down and get it right. Because if we don't, and in writing historical fiction, um, somebody will step forward and say that no, 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 that was wrong. So, um, so for me, the fun part of it, is doing the just getting the taste and the sound and the smell of the times in my head, so I can weave it into the story
So, is there going to be a fourth book?
of the series. I hope so.
Are you
I
going to write something different now? You got one you're working on now that's a different set of characters in a different time, you said.
Yeah, it's a standalone because I wanted to try a standalone, not knowing that a standalone that truly has to stand on its own. It's a much bigger, not that a mystery novel isn't, but it's a much bigger writing project than a series of mystery novels with the same characters. And so I've learned a lot with this story, and I just love it. And it looks like it should be releasing sometime in 2026. But I'm hoping then at some point to get back to the series and do some more uh, with my Annalee Spain character.
Yeah, because a series you can kind of let things kind of trickle out,
Mhm.
backstories and things across the series. But you kind of have to flesh things out more in a standalone book. I've always done just series, so
Uh-huh.
I've never tried just a straight standalone. But yes, there's definitely a challenge, and obviously it's different characters that you have an established series, so you've established those characters, so you know them fairly well. You're starting from scratch, and now you got
Yeah,
to fit it all in one book.
yeah, it's been an interesting challenge because my protagonist in the standalone, the code breaking novel, is about the same age as Annalee Spain, my mystery protagonist. And so early into draft one and two and so on, I had to say, wait a minute, these these are two different people, and and so I had to invite Annalee to go away so I could learn more about the young woman who's uh, the protagonist in this standalone work. And um, and then Randy, as you know, I you one of your questions for me, I know, was, are you a plotter or a pantser? And I pantsed the first two books in the Annalee Spain series, and then I was on a tight deadline for book three, so I plotted it. And to my surprise, I loved the plotting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm really surprised about that. So, So for the standalone, and for this, even with the pantsing, well, with the pantsing, but even with the plotting, I mean, these other characters who weren't in the plan keep showing up, right?
Yes.
And and
Messing
so
up your plot, your plot, right? Yeah.
but I just love it. You mentioned Cynthia Swanson and some of the other people who you've had on, um, but and I'm sure other people have said this too. But there's something about storytelling that suggests to me that the story already knows what it is, and it's waiting for us to keep um, chiseling and working and uh, digging and going to, until all those things in the story, including some characters we had not even imagined, finally work themselves out of the clay. And so it's just, I said to my husband one time, if I knew it was going to be this fun, I would have tried this a lot earlier. Um, but I'm sure you're experiencing that too. It's like, who's this person? Where did they come from? And they just are, have to stay in the narrative. So that's happened with every single book that fiction book that I've written, and I really and that's just one of many things that I enjoy about writing fiction.
Yeah, I agree with you totally there. So I saw on your website you had Stephen Curry give you a little blurb on your book. One of the great basketball players in the NBA, maybe
Yes.
the greatest 3-point shooter of all time. So how did that come about?
You know what? It came about because of relationships.
Hmm.
I've been on in a Facebook group actually for professional Black women writers, and and so one day one of the people in there said, "Hey, you guys, the Curry people have asked me to be their point person for his book club because he's a luminary in a book venture called Luminaria. I think that's the name of it. And so um, she had been assigned to find books for him to read and recommend. And so I wrote her as soon as I saw that. I wrote her a message and I said, "Do you think he would be interested in my mystery series?" And she said, "I already showed it to him because I know you write about faith and race." And I don't know if you know this about Steph Curry, but
Hmm.
he and his wife, in their own way, make a point about the kind of faith journey that they're trying to be on.
Hmm.
And and so the next thing I know, there is a blurb from Steph Curry. So um, at one point, Randy, there was some talk about him maybe being interested in dramatizing it as a film. But then somebody in his company decided that period drama is a lot more expensive, and so that idea went away. But still, it happened just because I was in the place where somebody said, "I have met this person," and then I said, "Well, can you introduce me to this?" And that's how it all happened. So
That's pretty cool. And yes, I was going to ask you about that because he does have a production company. He does do some
yes,
TV, and they do projects and stuff. And his wife is heavily involved in that, I believe, as well. So yeah, I was wondering if there was any talk of that. I'm sure period pieces are definitely can be more expensive because you've got the
yeah,
costumes and the cars, and you have to have sets that look like that time. But there's still
Right.
plenty of them out there. I mean, you see them on TV, all Canada. A lot of
Yeah.
Canadian shows are period pieces that they do all the
Yes.
time. Especially they're usually more not necessarily in the cities. Sometimes they're more. My wife watches quite a few of them. More
Yes.
in the outdoorsy area where you can kind of get away with it a little more. But yeah, that's pretty cool that he read your
Yes.
book.
Um, and the another cool thing that has happened. Well, you one of your questions you sent me a list was if the books have been won awards. And that first book, that my nonfiction book, won a Christopher Award. This one that I mentioned, that
Mhm.
my dean said I'd never get tenure for. Um, and then All That Is Secret won a Christy Award, which is for Christian fiction for first novel. And so that was nice. And then the second one won an award, a magazine called Christianity Today. They gave it its fiction award for 2024.
I think I have a
But,
graphic of that. That's
oh yeah,
yeah. That was I got that from your website too.
from
So
the
yeah,
website, yes.
yes.
But another thing that happened that's just been especially exciting to me is that the third piece got a novel in the series, got top mention in the New York Times Book Review and
Oh wow.
a column, their crime writing column, called Four Great Fictional Detectives. And I, it's not an award, but it just, yeah, I remember thinking maybe I'm figuring out how to write these things, because it's their, it's hard work, but it just felt validating to me in a really nice way. And just recently, they had um, some books called a segment called "Let Us Help You Find Your Next Book." And so, under thrillers and mysteries, there was a category called series. And I looked through there, Randy, and scrolled through there, and there was Truth Be Told. So, um, I, we don't know, in our industry, as you know, there are um, there are the John Grishams, and there are the people whose name sells millions and millions of books, and so our job as mid-listers is to keep at it anyway, and if we keep at it, people suddenly say, you know what, I heard about that book, I'm going to read it, or I'm going to, however that happens. Our stories get found, and but they don't get found if we don't do the work.
Yep. It's tough because there's a lot of people putting books out there. So competition wise and all that. And obviously, I mean, romance is probably the biggest category, but thrillers and mysteries are right there. And there's so
Yes,
many subcategories and subgenres, and
yes,
yeah, there's a lot of competition out there, and getting it in people's hands to read it.
yeah,
But I know a lot of people. I hear all the time, that they would love your books. I mean, they talk to me and say, "Is your books have a Christian type of bend
yes,
to them?" I said, "Nope, sorry, but I'm going to be sure to tell them about you in the future." So when they do ask about that, because
yeah,
that word of mouth and having other authors say, "Oh,
yeah,
have you ever heard of this person?" Because sometimes it's easy to get lost out there because there are so many people writing books. So
yeah. There are. So we have to, you know, um, I I don't I didn't plan to say this at your podcast, but there is one. If you'll allow me, there's one little scripture that's kind of my working scripture, And it basically says, yeah, 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 but pay careful attention to your own work, and then you'll get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't have to compare yourself to anybody else. So I feel, I guess, liberated or something from having to worry like I used to worry about all the other people um, out there releasing books. My job is to sit in this room and give my books my best on any particular, in any given day, however how much time I have or don't have, to give it my best and keep working at it, and then people um, find us. So I didn't know you before, a few months ago, but here we are talking. So um, the our our job is to do the work and honor the story. That's those stories that are just saying you better sit down and write me.
Yep, they're kind of all just floating around our head. Just wait for us to grab them sometimes.
Yes.
So, is there a book that you want to write that you haven't written yet? Is there something that's been burning a hole in the back of your brain that you've been like, I want to sit down and write that one? Obviously, the Code Breaker was one that you're interested in, but you're already writing that one. So, or I've already finished it, maybe even.
Yeah. Yeah. I just turned in my revision. Um, well, I think about the kind of books I like to read, and I do like. Um, I haven't even thought about this before you just asked the question, Randy. I do like the epic sort of uh, family sagas. I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't even let those words come out of my mouth because that is a that's a huge project. Um, but and so if it needs to go away, go away. But I have read a lot of those kinds of books, so maybe that's something. I don't know. Stay tuned.
Yeah. So I always ask people, and we're about 50 minutes here. So, but I always ask everybody. The name of the show is Bringing Life to Characters. So
Yeah.
I always like to ask the viewer, the authors, what is it you do to get those characters to jump off the page? You mentioned earlier they're kind of sitting there talking to you sometimes, but you still had to give them life, so to speak. So, what's your secret?
Well, this is the storytelling is part of the secret and the answer, and so they need a good problem, and um, and then they need a um, a good desire line, a really good desire line, and a flaw that keeps blocking them from getting to it. And I remember, Randy, when I was doing feature writing at the newspapers, there are certain things about certain kinds of stories that just help the story get written, and that's true for fiction. And so that's something that a a good character needs in order to um, come alive on the page. Good problem, good desire line, good a, a reason, a real flaw, uh, great um, vi- obstacles, villain, and and then um, a um, a willingness to do what we in our ordinary lives probably wouldn't. And so I when I did the first in my series, she was pretty kind of quiet and timid that first draft, but she needed to get some starch, you know,
Sure.
in uh, in in her head and in her heart in order to do the things that keep a reader turning the pages. And so they need to be, in that way, bigger than life, even though they may be an ordinary person. They must be willing to do the unthinkable in order to get to where they're trying to go. So,
So was she sort of a reluctant detective at first?
yeah,
Or she said she liked Sherlock Holmes, but
she was in the early drafts, but
mhm.
I really had to take her up several notches in order for her to uh, carry the weight of a whole book, let alone a whole series.
Right.
And so when we go to a film, the last Mission Impossible uh, is supposed to be coming out pretty soon. Why do we go? We want to see Tom Cruise jump off of skyscraper or something crazy, right? And so my characters, my protagonist for the series, is finds herself having to do. She hasn't jumped off a skyscraper, but she has jumped off a moving train,
Oh,
and so um, which is something that none of us would normally do. But though that willingness to try the hard thing then shows him or her that they can go on and figure out the problem, figure out themselves, and solve the mystery. So I was telling when I talk to book clubs, I take a slide talk, and I talk to them about story beats. And a lot of the, if it's an authors group, they are familiar with that term, but um, a lot of most people are not if they're not writers. And so one of my favorite story beats is, um, the one that where they are up against the wall. And one of my great examples is um, uh, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The
one of my favorite movies.
the the you know the the uh, the law are after them, and there they are. The only way they can get out of their situation is to jump off the side of a mountain
Mhm.
into a ravine, water below.
Mhm.
And so that story beat um, is very common in fiction. You see it in um, um, oh gosh, I'll come back and remember it in just a second. But I was telling when I talk about it in these slide talks, I say to them that so my sister's a licensed clinical psychotherapist, and she says that when the protagonist makes that leap and survives it, then the character knows that they can go on and do the hard thing that needs to be solved in the story. But also, of course, they say to us, we can take those hard leaps too. And so, yeah, readers may not know that they're looking for that moment in a story, but um, I try to write one into every one of these stories that I've written. Because then, then I learn things about the character too that I can share.
Yeah, I love Butch Cassidy and Sundance. You're talking about the cliff scene. That's still one of my
Yeah.
favorites. When he says he can't swim, he admits he can't swim. Paul
And then
Newman starts laughing and then breaks up, and he goes, "Oh hell, the fall will probably
they'll
kill you."
kill you anyway.
That's right. Yeah. What are you worried about swimming for? Right? You'd like to survive. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Do you have any advice for aspiring authors?
Yes. don't go it alone.
Hmm?
Um, you mentioned the Left Coast Crime conference where we spoke at a panel. Um, join um, writers groups. I'm in not quite half a dozen mystery writers groups, crime writers of color, Sisters in Crime Colorado, Rocky Mountain mystery writers, Rocky
Mystery
Mountain
Writers of
fiction
America.
writers,
Yep.
mystery writers of America,
Mhm.
and so at those gatherings, writers um, formed relationships. I mentioned the Steph Curry situation. You meet people, you meet agents, um, editors, publishers, other authors, and in these small families, we can become friends and we support one another and we learn things from other authors. We get inspired by other authors, and it just makes the journey a lot more fun. But because this is a lot of it is solo work, and it's just nice to have a community to be a part of. So that's my best advice. Don't go it alone. Find your people.
So had you gone to Left Coast Crime in the past?
I had not. I
First
had
time,
not gone to
since it was here
any.
in Denver. First time for me as well.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, so I want to do some more of the, the crime writing conferences. There are a slew of them, as you know,
Oh yeah, tons.
and so if it's reasonable to maybe invest in one a year or one or at least or every other year. Or you mentioned that you were in Branson, Missouri,
Branson, Missouri, this last weekend. Yep.
and so I have a couple of things coming up. The city of Aurora does something every year called Global Fest, and this year they're having a writers pavilion called World of Words, and they're inviting authors to you know get a booth and be in that. So that's coming up on June 14th. And then in July, the Denver Public Library is staging a panel called the FEM Mystery Writers Panel. And they're going to stage that in their new Park View event space of the Denver Public Library downtown. So those are two things that are coming up. And again, just showing up and taking part um, is a way of saying to readers and other writers that I'm in the I'm in the loop. I'm trying to be, and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, those events can be, like you said, you make good connections and they're fun, and you can learn stuff as well.
Yes,
It's always fun being on a panel, listening to other authors, and uh, and watching other panels, authors talking about various things. Left Coast Crime, Killer Nashville. I've done. I'll be going again this year. I think this will be the fourth or fifth year I've gone. That one's a learning conference. I did BoucherCon last year, which was at the weekend after in Nashville, and
yes,
but we I won't be able to go this year, but we enjoyed ourselves at Left Coast Crime. It was nice. It was here. So we did, since we lived up in Westminster, we decided to stay in the hotel just because we didn't want to commute back and forth, and the days are so long,
yes,
and that. But I met a lot of great authors, and I had a great deal of success getting people on the show as well. So that was good for me to get to talk to even some very Sarah Paretsky. I had interviewed her before the conference. Manuel Ramos.
yeah,
You know, I, I knew of Sarah. I did not know of Manuel, and got to talk with him, and it was great listening to him, and got to read some of his books. So
yeah, yeah. He's great. He
yeah,
he endorsed my first, by the way.
yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, you mentioned we're kind of coming up on a little more than an hour here, so
Okay.
we'll kind of wrap things up. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Any other books that you wanted to plug?
No, I think that's it for now. I thank you for the time. It's I'm in an interesting season right now. Family members with issues, but life happens anyway, and and so and we keep writing. So I thank you for acknowledging me in that way by this invitation. I've really enjoyed sharing with you today.
Yeah, it was fun talking with you too. Your website I put down on the screen there. I
Mhm.
believe you have a sign up through your website for newsletters. I know you talk to book clubs. If anyone wants to read your books, you'd be happy to come talk to them. I love coming to talk with book clubs. It's one of the fun things to do. Even if
Yes.
they didn't like your book, it's still fun. No, I mean, I haven't really had too many of those issues, but a couple of people they read my serial killer book and they go, "What type of frame of mind did you have to be in to write a serial killer book?"
Right.
Well, you know, do you want me
Right.
to get into deep psychosis there? I could tell you and stuff, but that's your website, and then you're on various social medias as well.
Right. All the things, Instagram and Facebook, and kind of sort of on Threads, kind of sort of still on Twitter. Um, but I especially invite people to keep up with me if they're interested with my monthly ish newsletter. And a a button to click on my website that will let you sign up for that.
And you have some nonfiction books, like your more faith based books as well, for people to
Yes.
look at, and certainly worthwhile checking. And they're available. It looked like to me from what I saw on all the different.
Yeah.
You're wide, so you're on all the different. You can get them on Amazon or any of the places that sell books.
Yes. Barnes and Noble has in Colorado has just been a huge fan and friend of my mysteries series, Colorado Mysteries.
Sure,
So you can find them there, and at the phrase, Randy, and wherever books are sold.
wherever books are sold,
Yes.
and probably in some libraries too. So
Yes. Yes.
for those that still go to the library.
Yes.
Well, Patricia, thank you. I appreciate you having you on. I enjoyed listening to you at Left Coast on the panel, talking about Colorado crime. We all enjoy Colorado, but we all like the setting of Colorado. And obviously, your books, the setting is in an earlier time,
Yes.
uh, and which is I always found. I don't know that I could ever write a period book. Maybe someday I might. I wrote a little short story for an anthology that's going to be in the Wild Deadwood Reads event we're doing in June. That kind of takes my private eye back in time a little bit, but inadvertently. But it's
Ah.
kind of one of those. It's one of those things that um, I don't know. I don't know if I have the imagine. I like to see I like all the modern technology too. It makes it easier to solve crimes to be able to
Yeah.
go to the web and research, right?
Right.
Obviously, Anna can't really bring up a computer to look things up. They did have
No.
libraries, but yeah, a little more footwork involved
Right.
for
Yes.
her to solve the crimes.
She does a lot of footwork.
But great seeing you again. Thank you so much for being on. And
Thank you.
hopefully we'll cross paths again. I'll have to check out those two events you were talking about. The one in Aurora will be in Deadwood for that one, but maybe the one for the library. I'll have to reach out to you and see when that's being held in July and see. I might have to stop on in and see that because it's
Yeah, I'd love to see you.
yeah,
That I think it's an evening, the July 24th.
July 24th. Well,
Yeah.
it's 4 days for my birthday, so maybe I might have to come down and see that. So
Okay.
thank you so much, and we will see you down the road.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you, Randy.
Mhm. All right, thanks everyone. After the little hiccup there, I think everything worked good. Well, hopefully we got a good recording of the show and all. So I hope you all will check out my latest book. And again, been getting some great reviews. Let's see if I can bring it up here. Justice for the Forgotten. My latest, retired Westminster police officer with a canine, travels the country in a motorhome solving cold cases. So that one is my latest book. Been getting great reviews, and I even just got my tattoo for the book logo on my arm just a few weeks ago. So, but hopefully next week will be, I think we're doing Monday next week as well. It's going to be Ann Parker. Ann was supposed to be on a couple other times, and she and her husband got sick. Also met her at Left Coast Crime. And I think they finally got well. So hopefully she'll be on next week. And then after that, I got Mark Stevens, which is another person I met at Left Coast Crime. And he's got a great new book out, which I'm hoping to get read maybe beforehand, a serial killer book, which will probably keep me up at night. So thanks so much for being on, watching tonight and watching the recording. And we will see you next week.